What makes a man capable of killing dozens of people, yet walk freely among the very detectives hunting monsters like him? Dexter Morgan isn't just another character in a crime drama. He is a symbol of control, precision, and intelligence. To survive as long as he did, Dexter had to be more than careful. He had to be brilliant. Every step, every move, every word he spoke was calculated to keep his two worlds from crashing into each other. And perhaps his greatest display of genius was how he constantly outsmarted the police's own colleagues while standing right in the middle of their investigations. From the very first episode, we see how Dexter uses his forensic knowledge not just to solve crimes, but to cover up his own. Think about it. Every crime scene he touched had the potential to expose him. A single mistake, one drop of blood out of place, could lead detectives straight to him. But Dexter never left those mistakes. He erased them with a level of precision that most criminals could never dream of. One of the smartest tricks Dexter used was his ability to blend in as the helpful blood spatter expert. When Miami Metro called him to a scene, he already knew what to say and what to show. If something could connect back to him, he would casually explain it away with scientific reasoning. To the rest of the team, it looked like genius analysis. To Dexter, it was survival. There were times when police unknowingly investigated crime scenes connected directly to Dexter's kills. Yet instead of panicking, he manipulated the evidence. He might adjust a blood pattern here, move a small clue there, or even discover evidence that pointed detectives in another direction. His coworkers praised him for being sharp, never realizing he was guiding them away from the truth with every clever move. One of his boldest moments was when Dokes, the detective who always suspected him, started digging into his private life. Dokes didn't trust Dexter's calm smile or quiet personality. He felt something was wrong, and he was right. But Dexter was always one step ahead. He acted helpful, innocent, and completely normal around everyone else. So when Dokes accused him, it only made Dokes look obsessed, even paranoid, in the eyes of the others. That was Dexter's brilliance. He didn't need to fight suspicions directly. He let other people's perception of him do the work. Another example of Dexter's genius came during the ice truck killer investigation. That case was personal, dangerous, and filled with traps. Dexter couldn't reveal how much he already knew without exposing his connection. But instead of slipping up, he fed the police just enough information to keep them chasing shadows. He made sure the evidence was interpreted in a way that led them toward one conclusion, while he silently prepared for the real one. What makes these moments so fascinating is the sheer tension behind them. Dexter is not hiding in the shadows, far from danger. He is standing in the center of it, all helping detectives, solving cases, and cracking jokes at the office. Yet, every word out of his mouth is part of an act. Every explanation is a mask. He knows that the people he calls friends would put him in handcuffs the second they found out who he really was. But the smartest thing Dexter ever did with the police wasn't just cleaning up evidence. It was how he built his image. To them, he was harmless. A little odd, maybe, but friendly. He brought donuts to work. He never got angry. He blended in so well that even when clues seemed suspicious, nobody truly believed Dexter could be the man behind them. That false image of the quiet, harmless coworker was his greatest shield. So how does a killer survive while standing in a room full of detectives? The answer is simple. He makes sure they never even consider him as a suspect. That's Dexter's brilliance. And that's why outsmarting the police was one of his smartest and most dangerous games. If there's one thing that kept Dexter hidden for so long, it wasn't just his skill at crime scenes or his ability to manipulate evidence. It was the mask he wore at home. To survive, Dexter needed more than science. He needed a cover story so convincing that nobody would ever imagine him as a killer. That cover was his family life. Dexter understood something that most criminals never grasp. Suspicion grows strongest around loners. A man who isolates himself, avoids relationships, and never shows warmth will always look suspicious. But a man with a wife, kids, and backyard barbecues, that man looks normal. That man looks safe. And so, Dexter became what he called a wolf in sheep's clothing, hiding his darkness behind the image of the perfect family man at first. It was Rita who gave Dexter this shield. Rita was kind, gentle, and broken in her own ways. With her, Dexter didn't have to fake passion or wild romance. He could play the role of the caring boyfriend who was patient and supportive. What nobody saw was that Dexter was using Rita's normalcy as his greatest disguise. By being with her, he appeared stable, harmless, and grounded. To outsiders, Dexter wasn't a predator, he was a man in love. This deception grew even stronger when Dexter married Rita and became a father. Suddenly, he wasn't just a man with a girlfriend, he was a husband, a father, a protector. People trusted him even more. No detective in their right mind would look at a man changing diapers at night and think, "This is the serial killer we've been chasing." Dexter knew that, and he played into it beautifully. One of the smartest examples of this mask came during moments when the police began circling closer to the truth. Whenever pressure built, Dexter leaned harder into his family role. He'd show up to work with tired eyes, complaining about sleepless nights with the baby. He'd talk about grocery shopping, cooking, or little arguments at home. These ordinary details were like camouflage. They painted him as too mundane to be dangerous. And the more normal he seemed, further suspicion drifted away. But Dexter's family life wasn't just an act for the outside world. It was also a strategy to control his own urges. He believed that his family gave him something to lose, and that made him more careful. Killing recklessly would put Rita and the kids at risk. So, in a twisted way, his family helped sharpen his discipline. They made him smarter because every decision carried higher stakes. Of course, the irony is chilling. Rita believed Dexter was her safe place. She thought he was the gentle man who healed her wounds after years of abuse. She never suspected the monster living right beside her. And that's what makes Dexter's performance so haunting. His ability to deliver genuine comfort while hiding a darkness she could never imagine. Dexter's brilliance as a family man also showed in how he manipulated timing. He knew when to put on the smile, when to hold his child, and when to act stressed about marriage problems. He played the role so convincingly that even Deborah, his own sister, who was a detective with razor-sharp instincts, never saw through him for years. She trusted him not just as a brother, but as a man who cared about family. And that trust blinded her from seeing the truth. One of the most chilling examples of Dexter using family life as a cover came in Season 4, during his battle with the Trinity Killer. Arthur Mitchell, like Dexter, was a man with two lives. He also had a family and a carefully built image. Watching them mirror each other was like seeing two predators hiding in plain sight. But the key difference? Dexter was better at the game. He balanced his family image while still hunting Arthur. He never lost control, never let his mask slip. Even while chasing one of the most dangerous killers he'd ever faced, Dexter still showed up at home to play the role of loving father and husband. What makes this aspect of Dexter's intelligence so compelling is the long-term thinking behind it. He didn't just fake family life for a few weeks or months. He lived it for years. He made it a permanent part of his cover. That's why nobody could break through it. Even the most suspicious detectives would stop and think, no, not him. He has a wife, a child, a home. He's not the type. And yet that's exactly the type Dexter was, the kind that no one suspects. His smartest move wasn't in cleaning crime scenes or planting evidence. It was in living a life so ordinary, so boring, so convincingly human, that he disappeared in plain sight. So while the world saw a man who cared for his wife, who played with his son, who tried to be a good brother and neighbor, the truth was much darker. Dexter's family wasn't just love, it was armor. And wearing that armor, Dexter outsmarted everyone around him for years. What separates Dexter from ordinary criminals isn't just his skill at avoiding the police. It's the way he matches wits with killers as dangerous, and sometimes even smarter, than himself. These encounters are the heart of Dexter's story, the moments when his intelligence is tested not by clueless detectives, but by predators who see the world the same way he does. And time after time, Dexter proves that no matter how twisted the opponent, he is always one step ahead. From the beginning, Dexter faced rivals who forced him to sharpen his skills. The ice truck killer was the first real challenge. A murderer who didn't just kill, He played a psychological game. He left clues designed to taunt Dexter, to pull him into a deadly puzzle. Most killers would have been consumed by fear. But Dexter wasn't like most. He treated the case like a chess match, analyzing every move, anticipating the next step, and hiding his own pieces until the board was ready. In the end, Dexter didn't just solve the puzzle, he solved it on his terms, showing that his ability to think like a predator gave him the upper hand. But perhaps the clearest example of Dexter's brilliance against another killer came with Miguel Prado. Miguel wasn't just another target, he was a powerful district attorney. Unlike most, Miguel saw the darkness in Dexter and embraced it. For a time, it seemed like Dexter had found a partner, someone who could share his code. But deep down, Dexter knew better. He understood that Miguel's ambition and recklessness would eventually put them both at risk. So Dexter played along. He pretended to be a mentor.
Teaching
Miguel the rules, while secretly watching for the perfect moment to strike. This was more than murder, it was manipulation. Dexter allowed Miguel to feel in control, to believe he was the one leading. But in truth, Dexter was pulling the strings the whole time. When Miguel finally overstepped, breaking the code and revealing his true nature, Dexter was ready. With cold precision, he eliminated Miguel, turning a dangerous ally into another trophy. That wasn't luck, it was strategy. Dexter didn't just kill Miguel. He outsmarted him from the very beginning. And then there was the Trinity killer, Arthur Mitchell. For many fans, this was the ultimate test of Dexter's mind. Arthur was unlike anyone Dexter had ever faced. He lived a double life too, hiding behind the image of a devoted family man while secretly carrying out a cycle of murders. For the first time, Dexter looked into a mirror that reflected his own darkest secrets. Arthur was intelligent, cautious, and frighteningly methodical. But Dexter wasn't intimidated. Instead, he infiltrated Arthur's world, pretending to admire him, even posing as a student learning from a master. This was one of Dexter's boldest moves, walking directly into the lion's den. Every dinner, every conversation with Arthur's family was a risk. One wrong word could expose him. Yet Dexter played the role perfectly, gaining Arthur's trust while secretly planning his downfall. The brilliance of Dexter's approach to Arthur wasn't just in deception, it was in patience. He didn't rush. He didn't let anger cloud his mind. He studied Arthur, learned his weaknesses, and waited for the exact moment when Arthur's guard was down. That patience, that control, is what made Dexter truly dangerous. In the end, even a killer as cunning as the Trinity killer couldn't escape Dexter's trap. Dexter's intelligence shines brightest when he faces killers who think they can't be caught. These aren't random criminals, they're predators who believe they're untouchable. But Dexter knows their arrogance is their weakness. He observes them closely, lets them underestimate him, and then strikes with precision. It's not just about killing, it's about proving that his mind is sharper, his control is stronger, and his game is smarter. Another fascinating layer to these battles is how Dexter uses his mask to gain advantage. While other killers hide in the shadows, Dexter hides in plain sight. He's the quiet coworker, the family man, the forensic expert. No rival ever suspects that the man standing right beside them is the one who will bring them down. This disguise gives Dexter the freedom to walk directly into their lives, study them up close, and dismantle them piece by piece. And yet, what makes these moments so gripping isn't just Dexter's victories, it's the danger behind them. Facing killers like Miguel or Trinity wasn't just about intelligence, it was about survival. One wrong move, one slip of the mask, and Dexter would have been exposed, killed, or worse, captured by the very people he worked beside. But his brilliance was in never slipping, never losing control, and always staying 3 moves ahead. So when we talk about Dexter's smartest moments, it's not enough to mention his skill with evidence or his ability to mislead the police. His true genius lies in how he plays the most dangerous game of all, the game of predator versus predator. And time after time, Dexter proves that when killers collide, he is the one who survives. For all his planning, for all his discipline, Dexter Morgan still lived on the edge of exposure every single day. It didn't matter how carefully he wrapped his victims, how neatly he scrubbed his crime scenes, or how smoothly he played the part of husband, brother, and coworker. There were moments, dozens of them, when everything could have collapsed. These were the times when Dexter wasn't just clever. He was brilliant. Because escaping close calls required more than skill. It required fast thinking, improvisation, and nerves of steel. One of the earliest close calls came with Sergeant James Dokes. From the very beginning, Dokes saw what no one else did: Dexter's mask. He didn't buy the donuts, the quiet smiles, or the fake small talk. Dokes felt something dark beneath the surface, and he wasn't wrong. His suspicions grew so strong that he began following Dexter, watching him like a hawk. For most killers, this would have been the end. But Dexter adapted. Instead of running or fighting openly, he leaned into his harmless act even harder. Around the rest of the team, he let Dokes' obsession look like paranoia. And when Dokes finally got too close, Dexter managed to turn the tables entirely. He framed Dokes as the Bay Harbor butcher, feeding the police carefully planted evidence until they believed one of their own was the monster. It was ruthless. It was cold. But it was also genius. Another unforgettable close call came during Season 2. When divers discovered bags of body parts, Dexter's trophies, off the coast of Miami. For any other killer, this would have been a death sentence. The police weren't just guessing anymore. They had proof that a serial killer was out there. And that serial killer was Dexter. Yet somehow, he stayed calm. He inserted himself into the investigation, analyzing the very evidence that should have condemned him. Each time suspicion drifted his way, he redirected it with expert precision. He even took advantage of others' weaknesses, letting their mistakes cover his tracks. By the end, the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation didn't catch Dexter. It elevated him. He came out of it untouchable, while everyone else carried the blame. But perhaps Dexter's closest brush with disaster wasn't with law enforcement, it was with family. Deborah Morgan, his sister, spent years chasing killers, and all the while, her own brother was hiding right beside her. The tension built season after season, until finally, Deborah walked in on Dexter mid-kill. In that moment, everything should have unraveled. Deborah's career, Dexter's life, their bond as siblings, it all should have shattered. But Dexter didn't panic. He didn't break down. He calmly turned the truth into a twisted explanation, slowly pulling Deborah into his world instead of letting her destroy it. That calmness under pressure, that ability to transform a disaster into an advantage, is the mark of someone who thinks faster than anyone else in the room. Then there were the countless smaller close calls. The ones that kept audiences holding their breath. The unexpected knocks on his door while he was cleaning up blood. The coworkers who almost opened his suspiciously locked drawers. The late-night calls that dragged him from one life into another without warning. Each time, Dexter improvised. He had excuses ready, backup plans prepared, and when all else failed, he relied on sheer quick thinking. He never let fear freeze him. He turned it into focus. One of the most chilling examples of his improvisation came during Season 4. In his war with Arthur Mitchell, the Trinity Killer. At one point, Arthur confronted Dexter directly, revealing that he knew far more than he should. For most people, this would be the moment of collapse. But Dexter didn't falter. He played along, pretending to admire Arthur, pretending to be weak, pretending to be the student, when in fact, he was the hunter. By the time Arthur realized the truth, it was already too late. What makes Dexter's escape so brilliant isn't just that he survived them. It's how he survived them. He never relied on brute force or blind luck. He relied on intellect, on his ability to read people, to understand what they wanted to see, and to give them that exact picture. Whether it was his coworkers at Miami Metro, his sister Deborah, or even killers like Arthur, Dexter knew how to twist the moment in his favor. But the danger of these close calls was always the same. The mask could crack at any second. The wrong drop of blood, the wrong slip of the tongue, the wrong look in his eyes, and everything would be over. That's what made watching Dexter so terrifying and so thrilling. Every moment felt like a countdown, every lie like a ticking bomb. And yet, season after season, Dexter walked away untouched, unscathed, and unseen. Escaping the police was one thing. Escaping suspicion from killers who thought like him was another. But escaping his sister's love, his coworkers' trust, and his own growing mistakes that required a genius most criminals will never have. Dexter's smartest moments were never just in the kill room. They were in the lies he told at the dinner table, in the evidence he twisted at work, and in the calm expression he wore when disaster was seconds away. And that is why escaping close calls wasn't just a skill for Dexter. It was survival. It was the razor-thin line that separated the man who kept killing from the man who should have been caught. And every time he crossed that line without falling, it proved just how dangerously smart he really was. If Dexter's life were a game of chess, his job at Miami Metro was as queen, the most powerful piece on the board. Most killers spend their lives running from forensic science. Dexter, on the other hand, mastered it. He didn't just understand blood, fibers, and evidence, he weaponized them. Every crime scene he touched, every analysis he performed wasn't just about solving murders. It was about protecting himself, creating illusions, and staying 10 steps ahead of anyone who might discover the truth. From the very first episode, we see how deeply Dexter understands blood spatter. For most detectives, blood on the wall is just a stain. For Dexter, it's a story. He can tell where the victims stood, how fast they were moving, what weapon was used, and even the emotions behind the act. That ability made him invaluable to Miami Metro. But here's the twist: Dexter didn't just use this skill to catch killers. He used it to erase himself from suspicion. Whenever a crime scene came dangerously close to his own work, Dexter was there first, controlling the narrative. If blood spatter could expose him, he adjusted the explanation. If evidence pointed too close to home, he redirected it with a convincing scientific story. One of the smartest examples came during the Bay Harbor butcher investigation. The police were hunting a killer who had been dumping bodies into the ocean. Dexter himself. And the evidence. It was overwhelming. But Dexter's brilliance was in how he used his forensic skills to reshape that evidence. He presented logical explanations, clean analysis, and subtle misdirections that led the team down other paths. He wasn't just analyzing crime scenes, he was controlling them. There's also the way Dexter weaponized his knowledge of procedure. He knew how long evidence stayed viable, what labs would test, and which details detectives ignored. With that knowledge, he could plant false leads, destroy incriminating traces, or time his kills so that nothing useful could ever be found. His mastery of procedure meant that while other killers left trails, Dexter left puzzles with missing pieces, puzzles only he knew how to complete. Another fascinating layer is how Dexter used science not only to hide, but to hunt. He knew exactly what investigators would look for at his victims' crime scenes, so he stripped those places clean before they were ever discovered. Plastic sheets, controlled environments, precision cuts, these weren't just rituals. They were forensic countermeasures. While most criminals hoped they wouldn't be caught, Dexter engineered his kills to make sure he couldn't be caught. One of his most chilling displays of forensic manipulation came when he planted evidence to frame others. When suspicion grew too heavy, Dexter would subtly introduce a new angle, perhaps a drop of blood where it shouldn't be, or a piece of DNA in just the right spot. To detectives, it looked like the case breaking wide open. To Dexter, it was the perfect way to push suspicion off himself and onto someone else. Dokes, for instance, didn't just look guilty because of his behavior. He looked guilty because Dexter made sure the science pointed his way, and then theirs. Dexter's ability to explain away mistakes in plain sight. Imagine this. He's standing at a crime scene, surrounded by detectives. When someone points to a strange blood pattern that could reveal the truth, instead of panicking, Dexter calmly delivers a perfect scientific explanation. His voice steady, his words precise. In that moment, the danger disappears. The evidence doesn't condemn him. It becomes another example of his brilliance as a blood expert. That calm intelligence, that ability to think and explain under pressure, is what allowed Dexter to survive countless close calls. But perhaps the most chilling part of Dexter's forensic genius was how much his coworkers admired him for it. They trusted his skills. They relied on him to find the truth. And in doing so, they let him shape the narrative of every investigation. He wasn't just avoiding suspicion, he was actively building his own legend. To them, Dexter was the brilliant analyst who could see things no one else could. To Dexter, it was the perfect cover, a killer guiding the hunters. This blending of science and survival shows the depth of Dexter's mind. He didn't just rely on brute strength or violence. He relied on knowledge, calculation, and preparation. Forensic science was his shield, his sword, and his stage. He turned every tool of law enforcement into an advantage, twisting the very system designed to catch killers into the system that protected him. And that's what makes Dexter's use of forensic knowledge one of his smartest weapons. He didn't just play the role of analyst. He became the authority, the voice of reason, the man whose words shaped investigations. And while everyone else trusted him, Dexter used that trust to stay invisible in the end. Dexter's brilliance wasn't just about how he killed, it was about how he stayed hidden. And by turning science itself into his weapon, he proved that sometimes the sharpest blade isn't a knife, it's knowledge. Sometimes Dexter's true brilliance came not from science or medicine, but from the way he manipulated people and twisted situations to his advantage. One of his smartest moves was how he constantly stayed one step ahead of the police even, though he worked right inside the Miami Metro Police Department. Imagine this. You're living a double life, one as a respected blood spatter analyst, and the other as a secret killer. One wrong move, and the people you work with every single day could catch you. But Dexter made sure that never happened. One of his most genius tactics was planting evidence and shaping crime scenes. So, investigations pointed away from him. For example, when the Bay Harbor butcher investigations started closing in, Dexter realized how dangerously close his coworkers were to finding out the truth. Instead of panicking, he calmly redirected suspicion. He carefully placed evidence that made it look like someone else fit the profile of the killer. This wasn't just smart, it was calculated survival. Another moment of brilliance was how he used his position in the lab to control the flow of information. He had access to case files, blood samples, and forensic reports before anyone else. That gave him the perfect opportunity to make small adjustments or hide key details that would have exposed him. By doing this, Dexter didn't just dodge suspicion, he actually helped his colleagues chase ghosts, burning their time and energy while he stayed safe. And let's not forget his ability to manipulate relationships. Dexter often used the trust of those closest to him as a shield. Deborah, Batista, Masuka, even Ligorta, they all believed in him as a friend and colleague. That trust meant they were less likely to suspect him, no matter how close the evidence got. And when someone finally did get too close, like Dokes, Dexter was smart enough to use outside circumstances to his advantage, letting Fader in this case. Other criminals do the dirty work of eliminating threats. What makes this so brilliant is the balance Dexter maintained. He couldn't just erase evidence or act too suspiciously, because that would draw more attention. Instead, he carefully calculated every move, always keeping his mask of innocence in place. To live a double life this flawlessly for so many years shows a level of intelligence that goes beyond science. It's survival instinct sharpened to perfection. In these moments, Dexter wasn't just outsmarting criminals, he was outsmarting an entire police department. And the fact that he did it while standing right in front of them every single day is what makes these moves some of his smartest moments ever.